Good morning. We're going to move into the time of the communion and taking the table. Can I ask you to put up the slide with the lyrics that said, "And I rejoice"? That one. There's so many, I couldn't figure out which one I wanted. But I was like, oh my gosh, what a song to lead into what I feel to share this morning. And it's a simple gospel that we're here to rejoice in. And so we complicate Christianity, and it mentions religion. I wish I had all the slides to remember all the lines, but it's how we get stuck in religion. And we're hearing a message from our church, from the pastor, about the exchanged life. And it really is a simple gospel and a simple message. And I really even hope, I speak to like the young people, particularly today, but obviously to all of us. But my heart goes out to them when I was feeling what to share today. In the book of Matthew 10, verse 36, we read that those who try to keep the life they have will lose it. But those who give up their life for me will find true life. And we would maybe refer to that as your soul life. And through the years of hearing that verse, kind of got lost on me a lot. Or what does that mean, and what does that look like? And you realize it boils down to just allowing Christ's life to live in place of your life, and that you give up yourself. So what does that mean? Like, I'm not giving up myself. I'm an individual, who I am. You know, your hopes and your dreams and your your hopes, your dreams, your opinions, your ideas, your time limits. But what does that also mean? Your anxieties, your insecurities, your self-doubts, your self-toxicity, all of that is like giving that up. It's the mystery to really finding peace and joy and happiness. You want those things, those good things for your life, that career, that person, that, you know, those friendships, all that you imagine your life to be. It is flawed, or it won't get you to where you think it will get you until you just make that simple exchange. And, you know, I was having flashbacks. I did that as a young girl, just graduated college, so my early 20s, at the table in our old church on a New Year's Eve night. And I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. And then many times since in my life, you realize there is this one moment you really surrender. Okay, I'm done with my way of doing this. Trust me, it's the better path for his. But then there were many times that I did it again, and that I had a dream and was like, I don't know, I'm gonna let this go. And I did certain instances, and gosh, the things that unlocked that could never have been had you not let go of yourself. And so it's not me running my life. Let him run your life. And you'll really find your real self, and your real self in Christ. So then you think, gosh, for some people then they live their whole life not unlocking who you really are. That's crazy. And for young people to get a hold of that, if you want to be all of that and this and that, give your life to him. It'll blow your mind. The surprises he has in store for who you'll see him to be, who he'll create you to be. And so that is, I make a connection sometimes to say, see if this makes sense to you, but we're talking about Christ. Let him live his life in you instead of your life. And you're like, what are you talking about? And I think, you know, practically, we can understand that when you see today's parents are a little different than they were about 20 years ago. Any teacher can agree with me on that. Wow. And they really try to live through their kids. It's crazy. And we see it so much with sports and academics. You've seen it. We've all seen it. Certain parent trying to live through the kid to be what they weren't, or to satisfy the dream they never had met, right? And everybody's been tempted in different ways. And you see people that get to an older age in life and say, I was a lawyer because my parents wanted me to be. This was never what I wanted to be. And they have a crisis, a midlife crisis. I did all of this for my dad. or whatever, right? Examples like that. And you realize that is just the perverted gospel of, but you believe, back to say, you believe that people try to live through each other, right? You believe that parents, maybe that's an example, try to live through their kids. Everybody would say, absolutely, we've seen it. Then why is it so hard to believe that Christ wants to live in us? It's just the purified, good gospel. It's not perverted like people pervert in the world. That's what it looks like. And what does it bring people to? It brings them to despair and suicidal. It brings you to the end of yourself. But if we just take that concept and let Christ live in us, boy, will you explode in all that is within us to be and who we're meant to be. So in that glory, I challenge us today. If you never have or you want to for something in particular that you're living with, come up and make that surrender and that exchange at the table that you remember you did, and just let him live through you in a situation or your whole life, and see where he brings you. It'll be great places with that. We thank you, Father, for your body. Yes, I do have a prayer. So we thank you, Lord. Your Spirit is working in us and through us to accomplish your purposes, even when we don't see or feel. You're bringing things to mind. You're putting people in our paths and stirring up our hearts with that which matters to you and is best for us. The pressure is off. We have nothing to do. We thank you that it is already done at the cross. We're so grateful. Amen.
Anointed, that song is this morning. Love listening to that. Listen to that all day. Great job, worship team. We've made the gospel so complicated. Just kept sitting there. I was writing stuff down. Not a complicated gospel, not a religious gospel, not a gospel of self-effort. Simple gospel. And we live in a culture, the other lyrics too, no amount of untruths. Like we live in a culture that says, hey man, follow your truth. What's your truth? Whatever your truth is, just follow that. There's no more absolute truth. Do you realize that, the world that we live in? Man, just whatever. If that's what you believe, that's good. That's fine. Crazy, right? You feel that? Ted, why don't you come up as the kids? They can make their way out. Kidmo teachers, thank you for all that you do. Right? Week in, week out. Little announcement about a book he has right here.
Same book. So, unfortunately, cable commercials came to cable and they came to movie theaters. Here's a commercial come to church now. You can't escape it. I don't read as much as Pastor James or Pastor Linda. I was thinking maybe if they took all their books, it'd be like those European libraries where there's ladders that go around swinging. There's 5 stories high of books. But my life has been, for a while, like Jen, I kind of lost sight of the real gospel and I complicated things. And I said, the next book will get me there. Right? I'm going to get there with the next book. And I did it for decades. And then I gave up. A couple years ago, I just said, there is no next book. And then 2 years later, now, the Lord said, actually, there is a book, Ted. Now that you gave up, here's the book. And I just want to say to you, the church has put 20 books out there, and let's not get over-spiritual. But if you think this rings inside of you like it did to me, pick up the book and read it. It's like a chapter and a half in a regular book. It spoke to my spirit, not my knowledge, not my head, not the tree of life. It was the tree of life, not the tree of knowledge, good and evil. And I just take it and read it. It was exactly what Jen was saying. You want your real self? You want your real life? Let Christ live through you. And just get out of the way, but you will live, right? The Bible's upside down. It's you want to be rich, give away everything. You want to die, you want to live, die. This is a great short message. I can't tell you how much it's spoken to me. I've read it 3 or 4 times, and commercial's over. Get the book if you can.
That was actually a good commercial. Most aren't very good. That was a good one. Well, good morning. We are going to jump back into our series on Revelation. I hope to finish, really, like we started last May, I hope to finish by May, right, of this year. It's been a fun journey, more fun and exciting than I thought it would be. And here we are in chapter 13. I know a chapter that I think many people, last week, I don't know, I loved last week's service. I just loved it. I loved even at the end when people, we got to dialogue a little bit. You know, we always think church is a monologue. It's not. It's better when it's a dialogue. When we can talk about whatever is being preached up here, that we can have a conversation about that. I think too often you hear sermons, right, week after week after week, and there's no real forum for us to digest and have that dialogue and conversation. So, I don't know. I loved it. I'll tell you something else that I loved. I saw a documentary, and I thought it was amazing. And I don't know, anybody see this? It came out a few years ago. It was called Sour Grapes. Do I have any wine lovers in the house? Did you watch this, John? I didn't have a conversation with you. How good was it? Yeah, it's so good. And anybody? Any wine connoisseurs in the house? I know I'm in church, right? And some of you are looking at me like, you're a little religious. Don't be religious, right? If you don't want to drink wine, you don't have to drink wine. Every once in a while, I like a nice glass of red wine, right? I think it's good, okay? So anyway, whatever your personal opinion is. This documentary was amazing. The man that you see on my right, his name is Rudy Kurniawan. And what made it so fascinating, this is 2000, or like mid-2000s, maybe like 15 years ago where this started. This guy swindled like billionaires, right, into buying his wine through these auction houses, like very exclusive. You don't know anything about wine. I'm not a wine expert, but I know enough to know, like, for people that are extremely wealthy, right, this is something that, like, this whole world, this guy ingratiated himself, got into this world, and became like a very affable figure. His personality, like these really wealthy guys, really started to like this guy, Rudy. Now, I'm watching the documentary, and what was so amazing to me was this guy's palate, right? He could go to a wine tasting, and he could taste something, and he would remember that, and he could recreate the wine that he tasted that was super expensive. So why did they make a documentary about this guy? Because he's duping these guys. He's recreating these really expensive wines, right, using lesser expensive wines, and he did it out of his Los Angeles-based house. He kept every single bottle that he ever drank of wine. He'd keep it in his house. He'd rip off the labels. He'd soak them, and he'd make new labels. He's literally using Elmer's glue, and he's gluing the corks back on it. He'd study all of this, right? And these really, these wine connoisseurs, some of these guys, like sommeliers, they know wine. They can tell you this is from the Bordeaux region, this soil here in Napa, whatever. They would know all this stuff, and he's tricking all of them. He was able to reproduce these wines. It's the top counterfeiting story, wine producing story in American history. Can I show you? This is this is just one picture. When the FBI raided his house, they were in awe. There were bottles that were strewn all over the place. There were bottles that were in the sink that were soaking so he could get the labels off. This guy, what an amazing feat. And he went to jail for 10 years, so I guess he's still in jail. I don't know. He made a lot of money off this. There were actually people in the documentary, John, I don't know if you remember, there were people that were defending him still. Rudy couldn't do this. Rudy didn't do this. There's no way Rudy did this. He was able to mimic and reproduce something that he had. So how did he get caught? Because there'd be like a 1941 bottle that would be like $50,000 for one bottle of wine. And then he would have on the label like a type of that wine in 1941 that was never produced, it wasn't ever made, right? So that's how they kind of got him. People are like, wait, they never made this in 1941. And he eventually got caught. I bring that up as an example because, oh, by the way, can I tell you this about wine? Right? Freakonomics had a podcast. All right, I think some of you, if you like wine, you'll appreciate this. The correlation between the cost of wine and the taste of wine. So this was their conclusion. One of the researchers who wrote a paper dealing, with more than 6,000 blind tastings reached the conclusion that individuals who are unaware of the price do not derive more enjoyment from more expensive wine. Interesting. And some of you are like, yup. Okay, why am I bringing that up? Because last week we started to talk about the unholy Trinity. and how Satan mimics what God has done, just like this guy did, right? Amazing counterfeiter. Amazing how he was able to mimic these wines and reproduce and make people think that they were really the wines that they weren't. Incredible story. That's what the enemy has done. And here we are, we find ourselves, where are we? If you just kind of walked into the movie per se or the story, we are in Revelation chapter 13. And at this point, right, we said this is the interlude. If you weren't here last week, reminding us this is the interlude. And the whole book of Revelation, it's not linear. John, the Apostle John, is not telling us what happens next. It's not chronological. It's what he sees next. And here on the chart, you can see chapters Revelation 6 through 18. We are in the Great Tribulation, capital T. We are not lowercase t, tribulation that we all face, a 7-year window of time where billions of people, about 4 billion people, will die. Oh, really? Like, it's going to be a rough time on the planet during these 7 years. And we said last week, too, just to highlight again, we talked about the first part of chapter 13, talked about the Antichrist, right? And what did we say? We said, we hear the word Antichrist and we think, right, against Christ, which, yes, that is true, but the real meaning of the word there is to be in place of Christ. He doesn't just want to go against Christ. He wants to be in the place of Christ in our hearts and in our minds, and he's done a very good job of that in the world today. He doesn't come again with the cape. He doesn't come with the red horns. He comes trying to be in the place of who Christ is, and he uses religion. Did you hear what I just said? He uses religion as something that looks really good to put in the place of the life of Christ living on the inside of us. Live from religion. That's what he tells us to do. He's insidious. He's sneaky. Give him a little bit more credit. He's brilliant. He's able to take a third of the angels with him. I'm not giving him too much credit, but we have to say that at least. So here we talked about that last week, taking the place of the truth and reality in our lives. That's what he does. And this is, I didn't get to this last week, but I just want to put this up. I never put it up, but I think it's important. Because, yes, is this a coming world leader that will ultimately come on the stage? The Antichrist. Yes, it is. We believe that as Christians. But we need to focus on this, that we don't believe that the church is going to be here. We believe as your pastors. A lot of you in the room, there's all different opinions when it comes to eschatology, just talking about the end times, right? We believe that the church is going to be raptured out, like the good Southern preacher that said, I ain't looking for the undertaker, I'm looking for the overtaker. Get it? Right? Yeah. So, all different views. There are people that are called preterists. They believe that everything happened already, except for the second coming of Christ. Everything's done, right? And this was, you look back to Nero in the first century, and that's what John is writing about. I don't believe that, and I imagine many of you probably don't either. But it's getting back to this, it's the evil presence and power that is in the world. Do you see the spirit of the Antichrist is alive and well in the world today, setting the stage. The pressure and the stress is being ratcheted up. It's increasing on a daily basis. Every day you talk to people and go, man, the stress. Oh my gosh, it's so much harder to focus. It's so hard to just get in the Word. It's so hard to get together. It's so hard to get out of bed. It's so hard to come here. And I'm going to talk more about that because it's the spirit of the Antichrist that is here today. Stop looking for a figure. Stop talking about a person. Where's he going to come from? What country is he going to come? I don't care. It's what is happening right here and right now. That's what is happening, and that's kind of what we see. Now, I said there will be a person that comes on the world stage. This is what one scholar, how he put it, I liked it. He said, somewhere at this moment, I believe at this moment literally, there may be a young man growing to maturity. He is in all likelihood a brooding, thoughtful young man. Inside his heart, however, there is hellish rage. It boils like a cauldron of molten lead. He hates God. He despises Jesus Christ. He detests the church. In his mind, there is taking shape the form of a dream of conquest. He will disingenuously present himself as a friend of Christ and the church. Did you see that? That is exactly, he's not going to come and be against the church. He's going to come and say, I am all inclusive of all religions. Kind of what's happening now. The seeds of that are being planted now. Whether you look at the Catholic Church, you look at the current Pope, you look at other religions, this guy's going to come in and say, whatever religion you want, whatever your truth, that's great. That's how he's going to, people are going to embrace him. It's going to look attractive. Hey, just what happened in the 1930s in Nazi Germany. The Christian church. Hitler didn't just come in and say, you can't. No, recreating Christianity in the image of what they wanted. And that's exactly what you're going to see here. Don't fall asleep on me. This is important. Can the world produce such a prodigy? Hitler was once a little boy. Stalin was a lad. Nero was a child. The tenderness of childhood will be shaped by the devil into the terror of the Antichrist. Isn't that good? I thought it was really good. I thought it was worth sharing. That's exactly, I know, it gives you goosebumps, right? But that is happening. And that is the truth of the Bible and where we are. And we started looking, remember, Satan mimics. He mimics. It's the unholy trinity. What did we say last week? It is God the Father. Satan is the Father, right? And then you have Jesus is the Son, and you have the Antichrist, who Satan is going to give all of his power and authority. That is like his Son, then the Holy Spirit, and then you have on the other side, the character we're going to look at today, we didn't really go into any detail on, is the false prophet. He mimics, just like we started out talking about the way, he mimics. He does a very good job, but we need to be careful and we need to be aware of what is happening. And now that leads us into chapter 13, verses 11 through 18. We're going to meet this false prophet. All right, you ready for this? All right, I'm going to read all these verses. You know, like Batman and Robin, you remember, I remember as a kid, I'd always watch the original, you know, the original Batman and Robin series, and it would start out and boom, oof, right? I used to love that. What are Batman and Robin called? The dynamic duo, right? So this is how I categorize these two guys. I don't know, it's my weird, warped mind, I guess. So I'm calling these guys the demonic duo. Okay, you like that? I'm coining that, I'm trademarking that, right? The Antichrist and the false, they are the demonic duo. Okay, all right. You guys don't like it. Here we go. Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth. And so the dragon is Satan himself, right? First beast we said last week is the Antichrist. Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth. And he had two horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon. I must say again, right? This symbolism, the pictures that are being used. How evocative. We are Westerners. We think in propositional form. No, right? These are Easterners. The Bible was a book that was written by Easterners to Easterners. You have to see this here, okay? So next part, he says in verse 12, and he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Remember, we said that last week. Whatever that's going to look like in terms of the technology that we have available to us, not really a surprise in how that will happen. He performs great signs, so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. What would that be a reference to in the Old Testament? Yes, Elijah calling down, right, going up against the prophets of Baal and Asherah, calling down fire from heaven. I believe this is not real fire from heaven. I believe this is artificial intelligence again. All right, I'm going to reference that in a little bit. In what we can do, think about, like, we're out last night at dinner, and this guy's asking me about, like, I can't even say it, there's kids in the room, but, like, just think about all the things that AI is doing. This is just the start. Right? I'm talking about Pastor Joe when we went out last night. Think about all the things that are happening with artificial intelligence right now. Wait till I show you a quote in a second from Sam Altman, the guy, I mentioned him last week too, but this was like staggering when I read this. He performs great signs so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast, the Antichrist. By the way, you know, there's only 4 mentions of the Antichrist in the Bible. Right, they're all by John, and we have come, like it's you know, and I guess that term, you know, like that term has really come around, and even like the 666. Did you ever watch The Omen? Damien, like from 1970s. I slept over a friend's house. I never told you this. And that's what they were watching on TV. And I couldn't sleep for like weeks after that. And I came home and I was too scared to tell my parents as a pastor's kid that I watched this movie about Damien. And I don't know if we should be naming anything Damien after like that. Gregory Peck, I think it was Gregory Peck, right? Is that right? You're Christians. None of you know what I'm talking about. I'm the only one in here that saw the movie, The Omen. Okay? That will not be a movie we show in church, The Omen. I can promise you that. 15, he's granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, so this image that will be made, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. Told you about 4 billion people will die during this tribulation time period. Verse 16, he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. Okay. Some of you are like, I can't wait to talk about this. All right? So here we are. We have the demonic duo. And look at how he mimics, though. Just think of this first, right off the bat. You look at the Old Testament, right? There are like instances. Let's go to like Pharaoh. Moses is before Pharaoh, right? And what does Pharaoh do? He uses his magicians with the staff and turning it into a snake. And what Moses' snake just dominates the other snakes, right? There are things that Satan tries to do in mimicking because that's what he does and that's what he's good at. He can't create anything in and of itself. Now, this false prophet, this guy that we haven't really said anything about, last week it was more just on the Antichrist. In looking at the false prophet that we see here in verses 11 through 18, there is going to be a one-world government, right? There's going to be a one-world government that's going to be set up. There's going to be a one-world economy that is going to be set up, and the stage for that is being set right now, even whether or not you know it, think it, trust me, it is. One world economy and a one world religion. So really where the Antichrist is using his power and he's dealing with the political nature of things more so. A one world political system, won't be a surprise. This guy is going to be more about a one world religion. Can I read you a couple of quotes? And these are things that I just, so many notes. And I didn't put these up here, but let me just read you this. Yeah, how about, these aren't Christian quotes, by the way. This is from, first one is from Alan Bloom. The name of the book is The Closing of the American Mind. He, famous American philosopher. He said this, again, not a Christian. The essential component in establishing globalism is to eliminate any system of absolutes. Not a Christian. Right? That's what we're watching on stage right now. It's what I said before. There's no such thing as absolute truth. Go tell somebody that Jesus is the way, the truth, and life, and they'll look at you like, no, that's the only way you get to heaven. That's it. No. People will go, no, there's other ways. It's a mountain, and you're going up that way as a Christian, and a Muslim's going this way, and a Buddhist is going this way. We're just going different ways, but we're all going to get to the same spot. Which is like embarrassing and ignorant when somebody says that to me, because I'm like, obviously you don't understand the tenets of these world religions. You don't know what you're talking about, okay? But that's how most people look at things. How about this? Ready for this? This is a Nobel Prize winning economist. His name is Dutch. Jan Tinbergen said this, mankind's problems can no longer be solved by national governments. What is needed is a world government. Wow. All these things that are taking shape, how could we be surprised? We are ripe for a person, an Antichrist figure, and I still believe there'll be other events that take place. There'll be things that take place, cataclysmic events. Remember, America is not an end-time prophecy. We don't know what's going to happen. I can't tell you, but buckle your seatbelts in 2024 and I think 2025 for what happens on the world stage. Right? Will you be surprised by any of that? Black swan events, things that take shape. If I got into the economy too, right? Things that are, central bank digital currencies. Yes, these are things that are happening right, in other nations, and you're going to see and hear more of that here today. And that's leading to a one world government that can control all of our transactions. I could go real deep with you right now, but I'd lose everybody, right? But that's really happening. Now, how about this? This is from the OpenAI. Just stay with me. I know I'm teaching a little bit more last week, even this week, but I think it's pertinent, and I think it's really imperative that I do so. This is from the OpenAI guy, Sam Altman, who got ousted as the CEO of OpenAI, right? And then they brought him back. I don't know if you were following that whole saga, which took place a couple of months ago. I was. So he was in Israel recently, and he was telling Israeli leaders, the pursuit of digital superintelligence is a moral duty, and he says it will soon cure all disease. And he believes, even more so, he said it'll rid the world, in his words, it'll rid the world of poverty. Wow, that's great. Wow, AI can do all that? Wow. Eradicate poverty, right? All disease, eventually give immortality. Could talk about other stuff with it, but crazy. But here, let me bring it back to this false prophet, right? So this character that's going to come on the scene, I think be very inclusive of all different, right, religions. This is what is shocking to me. This should shock you. This is a book that I was reading the past couple of weeks, and it's called The Great Dechurching, right? Two, renowned Christian sociologists with so much data post-COVID, all right? This is if you know people in other churches, you have to tell them. I heard about this in a sermon. They need to know about this book. They need to hear about, some of the data, some of the stats about things that are taking shape. Can I give you some of this? Ready? This is what I had to drop my phone, reading on the Kindle app, where I literally had to stop for a second because I never, ever thought of this. Ready for this? Okay. What we're seeing right now with people that are de-churching, they just don't go to church anymore post-COVID, right? We see a lot of people, right, that is happening. Upwards of 40 million Americans have stopped going to church since COVID. 40 million. And they say we're seeing in the church. This is the part that kills me. It is greater than the first and second Great Awakening. First Great Awakening was in the 1700s. The Second Great Awakening was in the 1800s. And they say every other revival in our country combined, what we're seeing, it's just we're going in the opposite way. Does that just put everything in perspective? Do I have your attention now? What we're seeing in America is going in the exact opposite direction. When you had the First Great Awakening with people like Jonathan Edwards and George Whitefield, and people were coming to saving faith in Jesus Christ. And then I go to the Second Great Awakening, I look at people like Finney, right? And amazing, all the stories of what was happening. I bring you into the 20th century, and I bring you to Azusa Street, and amazing revivals. And you walk all the way through, so many people coming to faith in Christ. Now the numbers are staggering of how many people are leaving the faith. And how many deconstruction stories are we seeing? How many deconstruction stories? What do I mean by that? People who are Christians, a lot of them in bands and whatever, and we're seeing them deconstruct their faith, that they have all these issues now with the church and fundamental Orthodox Christianity. They have an issue with it, but not this new Christianity, which is not the gospel at all. They're okay with that, but they're deconstructing the faith that they had from when they were younger. Church, I'm here to tell you this morning, the stage is being set for somebody to come on the scene, because Christianity, especially here in America, take America, just lump us on with the other great civilizations that have gone before us, would put us on the trash heap. That's where we are. We're so far from God. The great teacher, and look, the New York Times. You know I love to give you stuff, not from Christians. This is from secular sources, the world. This is in the New York Times. The largest and fastest religious shift in America is well underway. People are moving away from any religion. This is what that article said. The percentage of Americans who have no religious identification on the census has reached all-time highs. All-time highs. People, what are you? Nothing. You're not a Christian, not a Buddhist. I'm nothing. I'm not Muslim. I'm not anything. Can I give you a little bit more from the book? I know I'm treating this more like a class, but is it okay? Is it okay? You with me? All right, good. They said, this is what the book said. This is what I like. They said, the country club churches aren't going to bring people back. Did you hear what I said? They can find that in the world. The country club. Oh, come on in. It's great. And I'm sorry, but a lot of the churches that you see on TV, and they have almost like fireworks and the shows that they have, right? And the worship teams, it's like kind of like, really? I don't feel like they're bringing me to God. They're bringing me to themselves. And what they're doing here, they said those kind of churches aren't really going to do it. They said trying to out-liberal the world won't work either. The authors quote a Harvard, that's not a statement about being conservative or liberal. Just listen to what they said. The authors quote a Harvard study that says a heterosexual man is almost 3 times more likely to attend church at least once a year than a gay man. I thought that was, wow, pretty interesting. Now, here's what the book really said. You know what the book said? And this is, I don't want to get too deep into this. You know what the book said? Did y'all get that? You got that? Okay, I see some of you looking like trying to figure out what that really meant. Now, what the book said, which caught my attention, they said some of the ways that we should combat this and some of the ways that could improve upon this, I was shocked by. They said relational evangelism, that a lot of people are waiting to actually be asked to go to church, according to all the data. These are like renowned sociologists. These aren't guys that like, these guys know a ton of data in here that people are waiting. I was shocked. You think that's something that you ask people, hey, you want to go to church? Church? What do you mean, church? But they said, according to the research, that people are waiting to be asked to actually go to church. Hey, yeah, I'll go to church. No, I'm just throwing that out there to you. I'm throwing it out there. All right, now let me turn the page. This is where I really want to focus for the rest of our time. All right, I want to focus on this part here in 16 through 18, and maybe some of you got out of bed this morning. If you were here last week and you're like, I want to hear what this guy has to say about the mark of the beast. I want to hear about 666, and let's just kind of get into it. Can I just dispel any of the rumors right now? Rumors. Can I dispel any of what I think, the notions that people say that are perpetuated? Like during COVID, the vaccine is the mark of the beast. Don't get the vaccine. There were Christians propagating this idea that the vaccine was the mark of the beast. Christians, go on YouTube, Christian leaders saying it's the iPhone, be careful of the iPhone, it's the mark of the beast. And this technology and that technology and this, and they could do this, these microchips they're going to put onto your skin. Can we stop the nonsense? That is not the mark of the beast. First of all, we don't believe the church is going to be here. But secondly, again, you have to give the enemy a little bit more credit. He's not that stupid. He's not going to come across that way. So I don't understand when people talk about all this stuff. That is not what I think it is. You can have your own opinion. I'm just telling you what I think. Now, the number 666, can I tell you this first? This is like a big revelation. Are you ready for this? This is going to be the deepest thing I say this morning. You got this? Vanna, you ready? 6 is 1 less than 7. You need me to say it again? Mike, did you get it? 6 is 1 less than 7. Deep, right? Very deep. What do I mean by that? Let me explain that to you. Okay? Nobody was amused. That's all right. Okay? 7 in the number, we say 7, the number 7 in the Bible, we say it's the number for what? All right, good. All right, I was waiting for somebody to say perfection. It's more about completion. So, and you look at 7 is the diatonic scale, 7 chords, right? 7 colors on the color spectrum. There are 7 days in the week, right? You think of 7 is the number of completeness. What is 6 usually the number for? Man, right? Humanity. 6 being 1 less than 7, please see this. 6, I believe the enemy, look, 666, this number, Satan is completely incomplete. You got me? Satan is completely incomplete. Man, 666, if 6 is the number for humanity, man is incomplete without God. We live in a world with open AI where everybody out there, and they think that we can be God. God created man in his own image, and what did man do? We've recreated given the favor back. We said, God, we're just going to recreate you in our own image of what we think you are. We are now God. We don't need you. That's society. That's the culture in which we live in. That's what we're seeing on the world stage. That's what we're seeing here. But Satan is completely incomplete, without a doubt. Man falls short. Man falls short without God. I know we're not supposed to talk about it. Your life is a 6 without God. Your life is 666. It falls short without the living Christ living on the inside of you. Religion falls short. Self-effort falls short. The only thing that doesn't is the life of Christ when we live from that life. That's it. Politics. I know we're not supposed to talk about politics, but can I talk about politics? Do you mind? Right? Because I think I'm so done with the tweets and the stuff that gets sent my way, the stuff I read about, the right and the left. Let's talk about the right first. I want you to imagine that the right is like your dad. Suck it up, buttercup. Get up, get out of bed, do what you're supposed to do, right? That's what the right, I'm painting broad strokes. The left, on the other side, is like your mom. Oh, honey, it's okay. Come here, I'll give you a hug. It's all right. You don't have to do that. Now, you may have grown up in a house. I know what some of you are probably thinking. I'm looking around the room, and you may have grown up in a house and it was flipped, where dad was more like the left and mom was more like the right. I don't know. Whatever your house was like, right, you get the idea of what I'm trying to say. This is what we see on the right. This is what I'm trying to say to us. The right gets it right to a point. The left gets it right to a point, but they're both 6s and they're never going to be 7s. Stop looking to government to solve all of your problems. Stop looking to the Democrats. Stop looking to the Republicans. Stop looking to Trump. Stop looking to Biden. Oh, Trump's going to save us. He's going to come back. No, he's not. He's a 6. Biden's not going to save you. Who's the other guy in California? Newsom's not going to save you. No, none of them. Just list all. No one is going to save America. Stop it. They're both right to a certain point. That's as far politically as I'm going to go today. Right? Am I right, though? I mean, come on, that's true. I don't know. I felt like I had to say it. Speaking of Johann Sebastian Bach, right? How many of you know, we all know the name Johann Sebastian Bach, one of the foremost, greatest composers of all time, musical composers. I read a story about him I loved. His kids, they were all musically inclined, obviously, right? Take after dad, genes, great genes. Well, what was funny to me is they would go after the dad in a funny way. You see, they would play musical scores, but they would always leave off the last note. They would never finish it, right? And they would do it on purpose because they knew it incensed and agitated their dad. True story. You can read this. Biography, this is true. He would literally get out of bed and come downstairs because he was so annoyed. He'd have to go on the piano and finish the note because the kids would laugh and they would snicker, right? Like, here comes dad. He's coming down the stairs. He has to finish the score. He has to do it. True story, right? And I'm thinking about it and I'm going, you know what? Satan is a 6, 6, 6, 6, and he's completely incomplete. And God, through what he did with his son, Jesus Christ, is the only 7 in all of creation, in world history. And there's going to come a day when Jesus Christ is going to come down and his feet are going to hit the Mount of Olives and that last note gets hit. And if that doesn't get you going, I don't know what will. The final note in all history is going to be played by Jesus Christ, not the Antichrist. Man, I'm ready. Give me some shoulder pads, a helmet. I don't know what I'm doing. All right, so now, all right, calm down. Talking to myself. I'm not like young anymore. You know, like you think you're young still? I'm like, I'm over 50. Just stop. Like, relax. You ever feel that way sometimes? Yeah, all right. You pull a muscle and you're like, oh man, I'm really getting old. All right, so, sorry. I didn't mean to depress you. Hey, how was church today? Yay, talked about we're getting old and it's not fun. All right, now, the mark itself. Can we talk about what you're free to, after, give me 5 minutes. You're free to say whatever you want about what I'm saying. This is hard, this is hard stuff to talk about because there's a plethora of opinions that are out there. But what I see here is I don't even think this is much of a physical mark. I really don't. Right, the mark of the beast. And can I kind of prove this to you using the Bible? Do you guys ever hear of the Bible? I think that's probably a good book to look to. Let me give you an example of this. I want you to go Exodus 13, verses 8 and 9. We're just going to read this. So what I want you to see is, first of all, this is the two feasts, Feast of Passover and Unleavened Bread. And it says here, and you shall tell your son in the Torah, right, Moses, and you shall tell your son in that day, saying, this is done because of what the Lord did for me when I came up from Egypt, right, Passover. It shall be as a sign to you on your hand and as a memorial between your eyes that the Lord's law may be in your mouth. For with a strong hand the Lord has brought you out of Egypt. This does not mean literally that they were going to put something on their forehead and they were going to put something on their hands, inscribing things to remind them of that. No. The forehead in Jewish culture, what this means is, this is ideological. So this is what you believe inwardly, you see outwardly. Does that make sense to you? I think 666 is more about ideology. I could take you even to the Shema. If you go to Deuteronomy chapter 6. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your strength. And it goes on there. It's talking about the same thing. And in Jewish culture, remember we went to Israel, the people that went to Israel, if you've ever been to Israel, you see people, you know what these are called? These are called phylacteries, where these men walk around with verses literally on their forehead and then look on their arms, those verses as a reminder. What I believe this is, talking about 666, is giving allegiance to something other than God. That in this day, when this happens during the tribulation, you will be able to see what people their allegiance is given over to. You will be able to know by their actions, arms, and their ideology on how they think, living from another life. I think it'll be pretty obvious in that day. Does that mean there will not be some mark that, that people will say, oh yeah, now we know that this person is following the Antichrist, is following Satan, is following the beast? Who nobody knows. But I don't think first and foremost that's what this text is talking about. This text is talking about, what are you giving your allegiance to? What are you talking about with your kids? That's what that text meant in Exodus. What is on your mind when nothing else is on your mind? You understand? That's what this is today for us as Christians today. What does your mind go to when it doesn't have to go to anything else? That's what this means, in my opinion. We get so caught up as Christians. I'm so done. I'm using YouTube as an example. If you just typed in 666 today, and you go on YouTube, you're going to see 1,000 different, and some of these people are nuts. I get embarrassed, right? And then people that are not in the church, right? Like Tozer said years ago, he said, the world takes these people like the scarecrow and they plop them right in the middle for everybody to see. And this is what all Christians, this is how they think and this is how they believe. There's a lot of crazy Christians out there, right? Back to my point. That's what I think this means. Am I crazy? Hey, am I crazy? Am I crazy? In this respect, I'm not crazy. All right, it's 11:20. I'm taking 10 minutes like I did last week. With what we just shared, I'm going to stop here. I'm about 35 minutes in. I want a little bit longer. I want it to be 30. I went 35 minutes in. Any comments on this? We don't want to hear how smart you are. If you think the mark of the beast is I don't know, any comments, anything that you get from this, I want to make it a dialogue again. I think it would be kind of neat to do this, not every week, but once in a while. It was very living last week. You want to say something? A mic at you or what? My brother is you're even more into eschatology than I am. I never thought I would do this. You are.
You're doing a fabulous job. I just want to say, when it comes to the mark, the one thing that really helped me, if you back up, James, and you didn't show up at the 15th verse in chapter 13, and it talks about the beast, it says it demands worship and this mark. And the thing is, that fixed a lot of stuff for me. Like in the 70s, it was the barcodes, and then in the 80s, it was credit cards, and then it was always something, right? And it was always like, wow, that could be it. I don't really know. When somebody finally showed me in the Bible that it says, like, because remember, why did Satan fall, right? He wants to be worshiped. The mark's like, that's good, so everybody knows who's on my team. But at the end of the day, he really wants to be worshiped. So it's not going to be a thing that you can just kind of hide out in and like, oh, I got the mark, but nobody really knows, and you know, and nobody cares that I don't really agree with this guy. I'm just doing it. Like, you need to physically, outwardly worship. Remember, like Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. Like, that's what I think of. Like, you're going to be like it's going to be you're going to have to do that. Like, if you're not doing that, everybody's going to know, and you're not on our team, and then there's punishment and pay. So that helps me a lot.
Bible. Who can get there first? You have to see Pastor Linda's Bible. How many? Oh my gosh. Jeez, how much writing is in this?
Okay, then
Can you take this to heaven?
we won't need it, will we need it? Maybe we will. Then a third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark on his forehead or on his hand. So you need both.
Megan, that. Yeah, interesting. Anybody else? Yeah. Isn't that the questions? I don't think I have the answer, but somebody will.
All right, I believe the way you believe about the rapture. Okay, so the rapture happens in the twinkling of an eye. We're all out of here. Then the Holy Spirit steps aside and lets the Antichrist rises to power because he steps aside. Why are we worried about the number of the beast? I'm just asking. Is it to tell people is it like to tell somebody like, this is what's going to happen when I'm gone? This is going to happen, so buckle your seatbelt. Is that what it's for?
I mean, I think so. Like if we're teaching through the Bible, like I mean through the book of Revelation for me, of course that's the stuff I thought about the last 2 weeks. I'm like, why am I talking about stuff that I don't really agreeing with your sentiments that we're not going to be. Yeah, but yeah.
Bible is to you, but not the whole Bible is for you. I personally think a lot of those verses are for the tribulation saints. They're not for us at all. That's what you're saying, John, right? They're not even for the church. They're for the tribulation. A lot of things in the Revelation are really for the saints. They're going to be reading the Word, those that get saved during the tribulation. Do you understand what I'm saying? So this is going to be really important to them. I don't think it's important to the church.
Yeah.
But be gone.
So I shouldn't be teaching this?
No. I think it's, I think it's, I don't know what
I think I said this to you already. Pastor Linda thought I was nuts doing this.
I
Like,
did.
to
I
teach
totally
through
thought you were
Revelation,
nuts doing it, and
thought
you've
I
done a
was
great job.
Completely, I'm not saying I did a great, but there's all different opinions. Mary, Doug, I'll go here and then I'll.
I'm just thinking that it's kind of like the lulling us to sleep. We need to know this so we're not lulled to sleep. I'm thinking of the blue laws in the 70s, you know, when they started opening business on Sundays, and we slowly fell asleep and moved away from our commitments to worshiping the Lord on Sunday. So we need to know so we don't fall asleep.
Saying, people are saying, oh, it's AI, and people are saying, oh, it's the vaccinations and all that.
Well,
But
AI
they're
is going to be big.
But they're not
Don't-
crazy in this sense. We've sensed that something was coming and that these things were all kind of symptoms of like, something's, we all knew
I keep
AI.
telling you, I don't talk about it publicly, but some of the AI stuff that I just,
Yeah,
it would blow your mind.
I bet it would.
I should spend a half an
I bet it
hour.
would. But I
talk
don't think everybody's crazy getting a sense inside that's saying, oh, wait, this is really going off
Yeah.
off track, right?
I think so. Yeah. Doug, go ahead.
If the writer of Revelation, the
on.
writer of Revelation wrote it after 70 A.D., why wouldn't he have mentioned, the Romans destroying Jerusalem for 5 months, and couldn't that have been part of the tribulation?
Well, so you're talking about a preterist view, and I think people knew that already happened. He's talking to, right, a Jewish audience that already lived through that, so he's assuming that everybody knows, right? And for those people, listen, Doug, for those people that are reading this in 96 AD and moving into the 2nd century, they would have read this and said, Nero's the Antichrist, right? 100%. That's their view, and they're thinking this is going to happen in their lifetime, and, they're awaiting the second coming, but did I answer that enough? Yeah. All right. Anybody else have any thoughts? Chris, you haven't said anything. I don't know if you know anything about Revelation. Have you ever read it before?
Yeah, once or twice. I was just going to comment. I like what you said about the forehead being the thought. It's not necessarily having to be a mark so much. What's hitting me lately, and it just ties in, is what we see in the world today. You talk about America, its roots, history more than anybody. Listed around everywhere. They're tearing down statues of Thomas Jefferson. They're pulling them out. You're not allowed to have this in front of this and that. They're changing things in the Museum of Natural History. They're doing, the things you see, what people believe actually shocks me, that they could be that, in my world, dumb, that they think history. I don't want to get too, but the Pilgrims landed. They had the Mayflower compact. This was a whole society beginning to build. And they want to talk about a slave boat, the 1619 part. They are like retarded people. There's something wrong with them. And I'm always thinking, oh, really? Well, no, well, they are so set back. They're set back. Their brains are in retreat somewhere. But that's a mark that's on their head. And the thing is, you see the protesters against Israel. Like, what are you thinking? They're pro-Hamas or something after that brutal thing? People think like, I saw pictures of college students sitting there smiling, and as they're at, with the Palestinian stuff, and I'm like, could they possibly be that dumb? Could they be? So here's the thing. What they believe about history, it's totally twisted. America is totally a different history. They want to totally reverse it, make it look like something. So what are you seeing from someone like me who's been around since the 1960s, 70s? How can they think this way? There's a mark on their head. I wouldn't quite put it on demon possession, but demon influences, and that is the twist we're seeing today. So that I can see that 666. When people think that way, didn't they say in the old Roman Empire that Christians sometimes would be arrested without saying a word? They could see your face, and they knew you were a Christian. And when you look at a real Roman, you could see they follow Caesar. And I think that's that kind of thing. You're not going to have to hide, or you're not going to have a mark. They're going to look and go, you are not one of us, because you don't think the way we think, and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I just think that, here we go again, the devil takes a little bit, he takes the truth and
He's good at it. He twists, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We need to be careful that we have to understand the devil has done, how do I put it? There's some things that we see that we may not agree with, or we may look at and say, well, why are they going that way? But there's some things that have needed to be addressed in America. Like you take the feminist movement. I'm a woman, so I can talk and say this,
What,
Yeah,
as a man, I can't?
No, you can't. Women have needed to stand up and say, no, this
Yeah.
is, women, we take our
Right.
place. But then the devil has taken it to the feminist movement that has hated men, and that it's ridiculous. It's
Yeah,
Satan
yeah, it's very
taking
true.
some truth, and I think that we've got to be
It's
real
always a
careful
little truth,
because
too.
there is truth, and
Always
some
a
of the
little truth.
statues even coming down, I have to say.
Yeah, he's a
not
slave. So
objecting to.
Jefferson was a slave owner.
was-
Yeah.
I mean,
Sally
I understand-
Hemings.
I
I
understand.
could give you all the history.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand.
Washington. Yes.
I understand some of the people,
Yeah.
some of the truth that's coming out that's saying, hey,
Right.
we haven't seen this all too clearly in America.
Of course.
So there's truth, but of course the devil always wants to take a little truth and take it to an extreme, right?
All right. One
Yeah.
more, because I said we'd be done.
Right
Naeem,
here.
what do you
Yeah.
got? Oh, you got a question? All right. We got one. Because people are you're actually into this. Go ahead.
Me or
Yeah, comment. And then he had his hand up first.
you go first?
Yeah, I got Go ahead. Wait, I'll give you a mic. Quick.
I could be loud, but I'm Nathan. How you guys doing? I had a question more on, you guys are tribulation before, like rapture before the church is gone, right? Before everything, before tribulation starts.
Rapture before the tribulation.
Right, rapture before tribulation starts. But who's going to be the light in the darkness when the church is gone? You know.
There are going to be 144,000 Jewish evangelists, like in chapter 14, if you get ahead. So everybody, if you want to get ahead, I don't even know where I'm looking at like there's some chapters in here that are brutal to like. All right, how do we like create sermons of like?
And then, like, in conjunction to that, it's like, what part of our faith is being tested if we're just getting raptured out? You know, like, it's very easy to live faith and be all that, you know,
There are a lot of
and
people
that's
that
like,
would agree with you.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem. Like, man, you just want to get out of here. And there's
yeah, it kind of
too many
feels like you're
Christians that,
jumping
like,
ship and you're just
wanna
like, oh,
jump
well, too
ship
bad, yeah. And then, like, you
right.
leave everyone else, and, like, where are you going to be the neighbor to that
Yeah.
person? Where are you going to be that, you know? It's like, it's not really fair to everyone else if you're just like, oh, deuces, like,
Yeah.
we're out, you know?
Is it a pre-trib
Yeah.
rapture? Is it a mid-trib? Is it
Yeah.
post-trib?
I love your heart.
I know,
because
we're gonna be
I
fighting.
lived there for very
Just kidding.
You know, I battled with all this, and I love your heart.
Either way,
and
we'll talk more.
it makes sense. The only thing is, I think the light is going to be the Jews and the
It's 144,000.
tribulation saints.
Yes.
Because people are going to be getting saved.
Yes.
You know what help? What you have your opinion. My opinion is dispensations. God never raised up a prophet to the Gentiles, also your Old Testament. He was dealing with the Jewish nation. He was bringing the Jews, that whole line, to bring Messiah out of it, right? So he was dealing with the nation. He wasn't dealing with all the Gentiles. He was dealing with the Jews. And then the church age started, where Paul was the apostle to the Gentiles. Now we see the gospel going to the Gentiles and to the Jews too, one new man. But it seems clear to me that he doesn't really work. He's not working both of them at the same time. The Jews were over, the Gentiles started. When the Gentiles are over, when you saw him pick up Israel again in 1948, that was the sign that said, uh-oh, dispensations are changing. But I do believe there's transitions when a dispensation
You're getting
changes.
too into, you're getting
Yeah,
too deep.
I'm getting too, but
Look, Martin
I
Luther,
bet some
Nathan,
people got that. I bet
Nathan.
people
no,
got
no, I'm
that.
not saying, I'm
yeah,
not saying.
I think
2
people got
days
that.
on, Martin Luther, 2 days on the calendar, today and that day when Christ returns.
Yeah.
It doesn't change my life, whatever happens. If a rapture happens, pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, I don't care, right? I still live my life and we're still looking and awaiting and expecting
Jesus
his
did
return.
say, you will escape the things that are coming on
Yeah,
the earth.
that's true,
He
yeah,
actually
right.
did use those words, escape. But I know I've battled with it too, so I get
Yeah.
it. And that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah. All right. We have to end this because there's a lot of
No,
people
don't end
that.
it yet. There's other people that want
You
to
good
talk.
still? Yeah. Jack, go ahead. You got a mic?
Yeah. Tuesday night Bible study, we had discussions about this. And we tried to determine if God had a number, what would God's number be? So the Bible doesn't give us a number for God, but we kind of surmise that the number would be 777.
Yeah.
Why? Because the Father is complete and perfect, Jesus is complete and perfect, and the Holy Spirit is complete and perfect.
Right.
Let's go to the 666. Satan is incomplete in
Yeah.
evil.
Right.
Okay? The Antichrist is incomplete in evil. And the false prophet and or the image of the beast will be incomplete and imperfect.
Yeah. Right.
So I think that there's a comparison between the numbers.
Yeah. And seven is
Shows-
used.
Yes.
7 is used 30. It's 30 times I think in Revelation. We see the
really?
number 7 used.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I just throw this in? Why are we talking about beasts and horns because think about, God had to give a language that people would understand.
Pictures, images.
Thousands and thousands of years later.
Transcends
He couldn't-
the time
It
period,
had to
yeah.
transcend cultures.
Yeah, right.
And that's why God had to speak in all of these pictures and all of these, right? And
Yeah,
all these forms.
we don't want you to be. I hope people don't walk out and afraid. Like you hear this kind of stuff, and it's more preparing, not to, to be informed about what the Bible
Naeem
says. Jimina's back.
Okay.
I
You
wrestle
go.
with half of the room wants to get out of here, and
No,
the other
they
half of the
don't. No,
room
they
wants
don't.
to stay.
I think they're really into it.
So, Yeah.
Everybody's
Naeem,
good.
go ahead.
Anybody can leave, really. We're not holding anybody in.
So, just as a quick aside, so one of the things that I'm walking out with, right? So we've heard all these terms, and yeah, it can be a little bit scary. It can be a little bit, well, gesturing, I should say. It can be a little bit scary, and it's very compelling, right? But the entire culture that we live in is to grab your attention. Everything that you interact with when you walk out of here, whether it be the dashboard on your car, your cell phone, your TV, the resolution on that is a dopamine hit. And so the world is gearing itself up to take your attention. And I think one of the things that I got out of today is the sober-mindedness. Like, wait a second, where am I going to focus on? What am I focusing on? Where is my countenance going? You know, one of my markers, something that I'm still working on, is like when I find myself out of whack, I'm like, what are you thinking about? What are you focusing on? Because the joy of the Lord will be our strength. And so, yes, these things are all happening, but our story is that He's got us. It's a completed, finished work, and He is not going to stop, right? We sing the songs. He will not stop until He's completed the work in you. He's not going to forget about us. He's a good and faithful God, and I just, that was the thing that quickened into me, is like, what are we focusing on? Because this is a joyful story. For us that know, we know what's happening out there, but my story is in Him, and He's got me. So that's all.
I think James did a good job of defining an idol today, James. Yeah. An idol is something, what does your mind go to when it's not busy with something? What has your heart that you immediately...
John Calvin, our hearts are idol factories. They
There you
are.
go.
It's just,
What do you go to? Where does your attention go to? As soon as you're not busy with something, what's uppermost in your heart and your thinking? I think that's what you said today earlier.
Tried to convey that.
I think that's a great idol.
Jamina.
definition.
This one's on if you need. It's not on. Here, I got you.
I was sitting back there, and even right now, I'm like terrified and anxiety, and I'm going, nope, that's got to come out. I grew up in the Catholic Church, and I went to Catholic school. So the 666 has been a horrible number, to the point that if I see a license plate, if my check number is a I rip things up because I'm going, oh, that number.
Ronald Reagan, he had his address in California. You know the story?
No.
It was it, right? It was 666. They changed it because, yeah, go ahead. That's right. They thought he was the Antichrist, 666. Ronald, yeah, yes. Yeah. Some of you lived, I'm younger. I thought you would know that. Sorry.
But no, it's fine. But that's a horrible fear.
Yeah.
But I have to say, today, you took that. I'm trembling because I'm like, yeah, when you get freed of something, God tells you inside. And we were given and knowledge is power, because you were given a gift today. The world wants us to be afraid of 666. It's a number. And I'm going, oh, it's less than. It just made so simple, the simple gospel. Just be simple. We don't have to walk out afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. Jesus has the last move, and we're all saved. And we're going to be with Him. And He loves us. He loves us so much that He gave us each other. And James is our voice right now, but everybody has a voice. Everybody has something to say. Don't be afraid to say it. Don't let that nonsense get in the way. God loves us so much.
Yeah, but I also want to echo my brother over there, too. Like, even those of us who believe in the rapture, pre-trib, we're supposed to be awake to the people around us.
Yeah.
And our passion should be, my passion right now is, I want to get to as many people as possible. That's, I get up to the table, I'm giving the gospel all the time.
Yeah, it's a
I
fair
feel like
criticism against them.
It's a fair criticism,
Yeah.
my brother. And
Say
I'm
ensconced in
constantly
your
thinking there are people maybe
huddles.
sitting here, Linda,
Yeah.
on Sunday, and they may not really know the Lord. They may not have really given. So I totally, I totally receive what you're saying, and that's my passion today. As the church, even those of us who believe in pre-trib rapture, our passion should be getting the gospel.
Amen.
The gospel to people, right?
Yeah.
It's simple. It's
Amen.
not religion. It's not your effort. It's nothing you can do. It's a free gift of God.
You should preach about that.
You think?
You should
I'll
talk
think
about
of that
that.
in my next life. I'll think of
Hey, I just want to, I want to commend you too as a pastor here in the church that you are brave enough, courageous enough to like bring a view out. That's the point of this. Not everybody thinks, like you can think. I love that. We've thought about that question, but it's cool to bring that out like into the light and discuss it. Yeah, if anybody's, your theology. All right, listen, we're done. I hope you enjoyed that. I love doing this at the end. Have a great week. Next week is open church. Pause on Revelation. Next week is open church. About the Revelation, about what you know, and you can set us straight.
Great job, Jay.